If you've listened to our podcast in the past, you know that we're always especially delighted to speak with parents of exceptional children who are also experts at dedicated to helping other families. We're excited to bring you that powerful combination again today as we speak with Margaret Webb. Margaret is a certified master life coach, parenting coach, former teacher, wife, and mother to a 17-year-old who is autistic. She's been sharing the strategies that have worked for her family for 12 years in her course, Parenting the Child You Didn't Expect While You Were Expecting. Margaret believes parents should experience more ease and joy with their children and less isolation and judgment. We could not agree more. Let's get started. Thank you so much for being here today. I really appreciate you taking the time for this. Let's just jump into what I assume is the why behind the work that you do. Can you tell me about your 17-year-old son, his diagnosis? Yes, but who he is and your life as a mama warrior for him.
Oh, my word. So my son, yes, he is on the autism spectrum, or he is autistic and has ADHD, and he had apraxia of speech, which meant he didn't talk until he was 5, or be able to speak consonants until he was 5. And so that was definitely an unexpected. Mm-hmm. And now he's the most amazing joy spreader ever. People always call him kind of like Buddy the Elf. He's just, this 5'9", 5'10" joy spreader. Because he feels loved and accepted exactly as he is. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so my why is always, it has always been to help him to feel loved and accepted. And honestly, I started my journey as a mama warrior, trying, this was not what we expected. Mm-hmm. And trying to kind of quote unquote fix him and try to figure all these things out so that we could get him on the developmental timeline that we thought he should be on, along with his chronological peers. And it wasn't until I had some kind of window shade moments where I realized, oh wait, it's not only not possible to speed up his brain development, but also not what I want for him. Mm-hmm. And it didn't feel good at all to be in that space.
And how old was he when you kind of came to that aha moment?
He was probably, there were several layers of it. There were layers of me seeking help for him and doing, I went to I think it's called the Institute for Human Potential.
Oh, okay.
Because somebody had mentioned that they had gone there. And so I had gone and spent the week there. And that was like a huge leap of faith for me, of realizing, oh, okay, wait, there are other ways of looking at brain injuries or brain differences. Yeah. And at that time, looking back, when I was giving birth, he had lost oxygen. They had to, do all the emergency stuff on me and, tickle his head and all these things. And then later on, I was like, oh, wait, okay, he could have a brain injury. And so went to the Institute and learned the importance of movement and cross patterning and stuff like that. And I was a teacher. So I taught kindergarten and 3rd grade, and had a nonverbal child who we did neuropsych testing and basically they told us everything that I had told them on the paperwork. And so I was like, wait, hold on, like this isn't feeling great. Like that they're not able to tell me anything about him from the testing. And it was a testing that I had to be part of because he was anxious. And so I was in there. And so I created and it's still a website out there. It's an obstacle course to figure out, like, how do you allow a child who's nonverbal to be able to express what they know without using words.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was combining my knowledge as an educator along with what I had learned from the Institute. And it was like, getting them moving and getting them sorting and doing all sorts of things. So that was a huge aha, because I started learning that he knew how to read before he could talk.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay, this is a game changer, because when he's in school and they keep doing the ABCs with him
Mm-hmm.
and he's having behavior problems, it's because he's bored.
Yeah.
Not because he doesn't know his ABCs, it's because he's bored. And so that was a big aha for me. And then, so I did that for a while, but then I realized that as a mom, I had my own thoughts and stories about what parenting was going to be like.
Yeah.
And that was challenged big time, because it was like, oh, I thought that it was going to be this way. And I thought that I was going to be doing this. And my husband's a neurosurgeon and I'm a teacher. And I thought, okay, like who's better equipped to be parents than us? Like, I mean, and we kind of like, high-fived each other, like, all right, this is like, we're totally ready. We waited and, for a long time to have kids. And then he came along, and we kind of like to say he came up with his middle finger up of like, hey, like, I'm bringing it, and you're going to have to figure your own stuff out.
Uh-huh.
You're going to have to. And so I had to, I started realizing, oh, wait, I have my own stuff that needs to be addressed, my own thoughts, my own stories, my own feelings, and grieving for the parenting experience that I thought I was going to have,
Mm-hmm.
which also butted up against some like thoughts about, oh, is that normal? And is it okay as a mom to grieve for the child that you thought you were going to have?
Right. Does it feel right?
Yeah, because like, oh, it's like, oh, I should be so happy and I should just be
Yeah.
accepting him as he is. And I also realized that I was putting all of these expectations on him based on what I thought parenting was going to be like.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had to grieve for the parenting experience that I thought I was going to have. And in doing that, then it was like this window shade went up. And I realized, oh my gosh, he's here to teach me all of these things. He is here to teach
Yeah.
me that, like, I mean, so many things. Gosh, like he teaches me every day about what, my awareness of what's going on with him, of my acceptance of who he is, of my choices.
Mm-hmm.
And I had some interesting, I know that you have, you dive into alternative experiences and opportunities to support our kids. And for me, it was doing nature-based coaching and and Equus coaching, and which have, it's the nature-based coaching. It was like me connecting with me, and then the Equus coaching was me connecting with my son, realizing that just like I can't control a horse who's 1,000-pound animal, unless I have like him reined up. I can't control him, but I can be clear about what my intention is.
Mm-hmm.
for them, and I can play around with like, okay, like I can try this and I can play with this and I can see what happens and I can look at it as feedback
Mm-hmm.
instead of failure.
Hmm. So, how did you get into all that? Where'd you hear about it?
So um yeah, it was kind of this interesting experience where I had one day where I just kind of hit a low when, and I remember it was like when he was 3, and I hit this like kind of rock bottom experience where I was like, oh my gosh, like as a parent, I'm, my husband comes home from work and I verbally vomit on him about potty training and speech therapy and, you know, like how I tried to organize the house because I was trying to organize things because there was so much, like I was trying to control things that were so out of my control.
Yeah.
And so it was like, what can I control and what can I do? And I had a conversation with him and I was like, you know, like I used to be fun. I used to laugh. I used to sing. I used to do all of these things that I'm not doing those. And like I feel like you're going to leave me because like I'm not me. I don't feel like me anymore. And I don't know what brings me joy.
Mm-hmm.
And I went to the grocery store. We were living in Lexington, Kentucky at the time. And I remember it like it was yesterday. And I went to the store and there was an O magazine, Oprah's magazine was there. And the headline was like, find out who you're really meant to be. And I
You're
was
like,
like,
yes.
I don't care what else is in my cart. Like, I need this. Like, this was here for me. And I'm not a magazine person. So it's not like I'm out there searching.
Right.
And I got it and I devoured it. But there was an article in there by who ended up being my one of my mentors, Martha Beck, and um, just and she has a book called like The Joy Diet, which I felt like it was kind of my Bible at that time of how do I find joy and what does that look like. But then she had a retreat. In Arizona, and I went on that, and that's where I met
Oh,
my nature-based coaching mentor, Michael Trotta, and that was where I got connected with nature-based coaching and just really getting back to like who am I
mm-hmm.
for, with the questions of always going back to what is my intention
Mm-hmm.
and what is my motivation? What am I wanting and why am I wanting it? And early on as a parent, it was my intention was I want to help my child, but honestly, my intention, my motivation was so that I could be happy.
Ah, yeah.
And realizing, oh wait, hold on, I'm placing my happiness
On this little being.
on this little being. And I was like, oh my God, I can't do that. Like I have to really get clear on what is my intention for anything that I'm doing. And I think this came up in a coaching session I did recently of somebody wanting to know like about a therapy.
Uh-huh.
And it's, well, what is your intention? Why are you wanting to do this therapy? What do you think it's going to give you or your child? And I think that's so powerful as a parent to take that pause to think about it
Yeah.
and to think about like, okay, like what is the motivation behind it?
Mm-hmm. Do you find that you get like, so you ask that question a lot of your clients?
Yep.
Do you find that you get similar answers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
And what are the answers usually?
The answers are usually like, my intention is to help my child be happy, or my intention is to try to help them. But then when we dive into the motivation, it's wait, hold on. When I actually think about it,
Okay.
maybe this isn't the greatest fit
Oh.
because like the the reason they're coming to me for coaching is because they are asking this question is it's like, ooh, like somebody told me to do this and I don't know about it. And it's like, wait, hold on. Check in with your intention, check in with your motivation. And if it doesn't feel like a good fit, you need to trust that.
Well, that's amazing that you can coach people to help them to find that, because I hear quite frequently, I think on the podcast that just dropped yesterday, a doctor had even said that I don't know his exact words, but he said, your child best. And, just because someone says something doesn't mean that you need to do that or listen to that. It's really important that we become the advocate and trust our own intuition, which I think doesn't always come naturally for most people, probably.
No, and that was one of the things that I learned in my nature-based coaching in a different way. And it was through these 4 archetypes.
Okay.
And the way that I look at them, or the way that I was taught them, but the way that I've applied them is like a compass rose, north, south, east, west. And north is the queen, the king, the elder, who is like the holder of information. And they have the big picture
Okay.
of what's going on, which is what you're describing. And quite often we can hand over our power to experts
Uh-huh.
and say, hey, okay, like you're the expert, you know best, when in fact we are actually the experts. And as that king, queen, elder archetype, we can say, oh, wait, yes, I'm going to take that information in from the experts
Uh-huh.
and I'm going to filter it through my intention, through what I'm actually wanting. Does that feel good? Does that feel true? Does that feel like it's going to be the most helpful and supportive for the child that I have and the child that I know?
Yeah.
And so the other archetypes are, so that would be like the north, and then the east is a childlike, which is being curious,
Mm-hmm.
brainstorming, being able to be curious about something and saying, oh, well, this worked, this didn't work, this is something I can do different, which I think for parenting, that rocked my world of realizing, oh, wait, hold on, we don't have to reinvent the wheel all the time,
Mm-hmm.
that our kids are giving us information all of the time. And it's just like, oh, wait, that worked for my child, that didn't work. And paying attention to that.
Yeah.
And then the south is the warrior energy, which I think most parents go to naturally when things start going on a different path than what they expected. And that energy is really important for focused, detailed energy, gathering information, taking care of things, and it can also lead to exhaustion.
I was just thinking
Yes.
that's why people can pick up a car, right?
Yep, exactly. Yep. But if you're in that mode all the time,
Right.
then
You,
it's like being in a bathtub with the drain up, where you're trying to fill, anything that you're doing to try to fill your own energy bucket. It's like constantly being drained. And there's definitely a place for warrior energy and
mm-hmm.
being the warrior mama, but also to realize, oh, wait, there's other energies that I can tap into that are actually more, that they can work together.
Uh-huh.
And then the last one is the West, and it's community builder, teacher. And I think that is something that I found early on in our autism journey, was that I would meet with people, other parents, and they would have their binders And I thought we were just meeting for coffee, but they would have their
Oh,
binders, and like they would, it was like, oh my gosh, like if you're not doing this, then you're not validating what I'm doing. Like if I'm doing a certain therapy or if I'm seeing a certain doctor, they would want me to go see that doctor or that do that therapy,
oh,
because then it validated what they were doing, or
I
do a
have,
certain diet.
yeah, I haven't had that experience where someone showed up with a binder or,
Oh, really?
yeah, no, never.
We're very lucky.
I
Yeah.
can't believe it. I'm not sure where you're hanging out.
Well, again, this was 17 years ago. So,
Yeah, my son would be almost 11 now.
okay.
I
Yeah,
don't
no,
know.
I never went with a binder. I was like, they were doing certain therapies where you had to track certain behaviors and it was a very scientific approach, which,
Yeah. And maybe in the autism community, which wasn't my world,
yes,
that that might have been like kind of the thing around, what people were trying to do to
yes,
solve a problem for themselves.
exactly. Well, and to kind of laugh about, I don't know where you were hanging out, because that resulted in me kind of going into shadow around community where I
Oh,
didn't have, like, I was like, okay, wait, hold on. Like, that doesn't feel good to me.
yeah.
And so I kind of,
Does
just
not
built
feel good
up.
to me either. Just
No, it
listening
did
to it.
not. No, it did not feel good. And so, um, and there were a lot of groups online at that time. And it was, um, a very funky energy. And
Mm,
so I kind of pulled back and then didn't have community. And then, as a result of doing my nature based coaching stuff, it was like, oh, wait, I can create my own community,
mhm,
and I can do it with the intention that I want, which is
mhm.
what I've done. And
Yeah.
it feels so amazing because it's like, all right, I want moms, I want parents, I want caregivers, I want teachers, I want anybody who listens to what I'm sharing to feel empowered. I
Mhm.
want them to feel like they have, the information that they need. And if not, that they can ask for information, but that they don't have to take it as, oh, I have to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that resonates with me because I feel very strongly about informed consent, I guess you could say, but I feel like that applies to like everything. It doesn't mean that I want to necessarily, I don't think anyone should do everything. I just want the
Nope.
facts and to know that things exist. And I want the truth about the facts, not just like some censored version. But doesn't mean that everything or anything necessarily is right for someone, but that they can choose and that they should be able to and have the freedom to choose. And it sounds like you're really helping people to get to that point where they can acknowledge their power and that they can choose.
Absolutely. And that's where it's combining. I use the archetypes a lot with my clients because it's like, okay, you can gather the information and then you can go to that childlike energy and you can map it all out. You can brainstorm, you can get your whiteboard or your sheet of paper out and you can say, okay, these are all of the options.
Hmm.
And I actually did that with my son with regards to schooling. And so we do school in a very different way. And we've been doing it that way for 5 years. He was in a private school for kids with speech and language differences for the first 11 years of his life. Well, from 4 to 11. Um, and after that, just the options for him, um, having been a teacher and being in the schools that he would have gone to, nothing felt okay to me. And I also knew that my coaching practice was ramping up, and so which I love. And so I knew, even though I was a teacher, I knew our personalities weren't great for me to be his teacher.
Mm-hmm.
And I could do it, but I started brainstorming what his school could look like if it didn't look like it was in a traditional school.
Mm-hmm.
And we ended up finding a teacher who had left being a special ed teacher in a public school because she felt like she was just doing paperwork and not actually being able to make a difference. And she would rather nanny, and had put her information on a nannying website. And I was Googling, home educator positions,
Mm-hmm.
and we, meshed up, and he's been working with her for the past well, I guess now we're at 6 years. He's upstairs with her now on Zoom, and it's been the most amazing experience ever for both of them.
Mm-hmm. So, wow. You Did you hire her like as his own full-time teacher?
Yes.
So you've been doing sort of the homeschool thing. I guess you could say that's homeschool, right?
Yes.
Your own version, which,
Our own version of it.
well, I think that's what I'm learning. All homeschool, they don't look like I kind of thought they looked like not that long ago, but now that so many people are doing homeschool, I'm realizing it can look however you want it to look.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I had to, yeah,
Well, that's
it was a lot
awesome.
of brainstorming of, okay, well, it can look like this, it can look like this, it could look like this, it could look like this. And I think that's for parents of kids who don't who are on their own developmental timeline. I think it's important.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, all children are on their own journey and they're each individual beings, and that even if they don't have some sort of diagnosis or they're just all going to develop at their own time, and they're going to talk when they're going to talk, and they're going to walk when they're going to walk. um, but you know what else I wanted to say? You didn't mention this, but maybe I'm curious if you also
Yeah.
talk about this with your clients. You were talking about like different treatments and stuff, and how that feels to them, right? And you walk them through that. But I think also that applies. I was thinking in my mind that could apply to like a diagnosis or a label. Like you can take that label if you want to, and it can be useful to help guide you, to find maybe treatments or doctors or in a school system. But that if it doesn't feel right for you, maybe you don't necessarily need to keep a label either. Any
What?
label.
Yes. I believe that 1,000%,
Oh,
because
okay, good.
you can get a label, and like you leave, like you can get a diagnosis and you leave with the same child that you showed up with.
Mm-hmm.
And it can, if you approach it with the intention of, okay, like I'm letting this label or this diagnosis help me to gather information, um, and use it to filter through what feels good, what feels right, what feels true, based on what I know about my child, then that's one thing. But if you use it to, like, oh my gosh, and I remember having autism be a label that I felt was kind of a life sentence for a while, because back
Yeah.
then it was like, oh my gosh, I would, anything that I read, it was like, oh, they might have to be in a home, or they might have to undergo certain therapies that didn't feel great for me, um, based on what I knew. But at first it was like, oh wait, hold on, this is what the experts are saying. And it wasn't until I really had to realize, oh wait, this is not what feels good. And yes, he might be autistic, he might have ADHD, he might have had apraxia of speech and he might have anxiety, I can use those in order to support him as best as I can
Mm-hmm.
without making it mean XYZ. And so one of my favorite coaching questions is, what am I making this mean? What am I making autism mean in my life? And what I make it mean now is very different from what I made it mean years ago. And now it's like, oh, as I said, I've got this joy spreader. I've got this teacher in my life who is teaching me that, yeah, there are times where he needs things differently, where he's very literal about things, where I have to be more in tuned with what his processing style is, which
Mm-hmm.
happens to be visual. And so if I want to communicate something with him, the best way to do that is through visual, like sending him a text or writing things down.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm making it, I don't make autism mean my life is over. I make it mean like, oh my gosh, like, okay, I've got this great teacher and I can be happy. And I'm actually a role model for him of what it means to be an adult,
Mm-hmm.
to be
Yeah.
happy
Yeah.
and to be able to find joy and to be able to do what lights me up so that I can support him in doing what lights him up,
Mm-hmm.
which happens to be lights and fans. And so which it looks very different, but it's like, all right, you know, you do you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, so you say it's your passion. You share that it's your passion to help others find ease and joy while on this parenting journey because life is so short and it's too
Yes.
short to feel isolated and judged and uncertain and exhausted. Um, the Brain Possible totally agrees with this message. How have you found ease and joy on your journey? So I hear that you've done a lot of self development work, you might call it.
Yep.
Um, and in that, you've learned so much about yourself. So I want to know how you have found ease and joy for yourself.
I think, gosh, I've the major source of ease and joy was coming, just shifting what I was making it mean, because that
Yeah,
caused a lot of tension and it felt like I was swimming upstream constantly.
right.
And so, which that is very hard. And so once I stopped um have, creating all those stories
Yeah.
and thoughts, then things became much they shifted and things became different. and
Yeah.
and I won't say that every single day is easy, but it's how can I create ease for us in this moment, and that's using what I know that works for him,
Mm-hmm.
using what I know that works for me, using what I know that works for us together,
Mm-hmm.
so that I'm not doing, oh, what works for my sister and her kids. If I'm always using that, that's creating more tension and that is taking us away from ease. And so I have to, again, what we were talking about trusting, I have to trust what I know about him and me and us and how we work to, and I don't even like the word work. I like play. How we play together, because work always feels like there's a right or wrong. And so
It
I
has a
feel like
meaning to you.
play,
Yeah.
it has a very strong meaning to me. And so I like to play with things, and we can play with things that cause him anxiety. We can play with things that have in the past caused us tension. And in playing with them and looking at the feedback and realizing like, oh, we can do different things. We are not locked into one way of doing things based on what society or how society does things. We can do them in our own way, and that works for us. Then that's what causes ease and joy.
Mm-hmm. That's beautifully, beautifully put. I actually realized or saw something for myself in that, because I guess I never really put words to it, but we are kind of meaning making machines and story making machines. Um, I don't know if you've ever heard of the Landmark Forum, but that's
Mhm.
something that I have done in the past. And it kind of, you're not supposed to do this, is connect one thing that you hear with something else. But I guess I automatically do that because I am a story making machine. But anyway, that has been really helpful for me as well, is to try and check in. And some days I don't do a great job at it. Um, and then to check in and look again. What meaning did I put on this? Um,
And I think one of my favorite coaching questions around that is, what's perfect about that? What's perfect about you not doing it perfectly every day?
hmm.
And yeah.
Wow. Well, I really admire this message and your work that you do, because it's so important, not just to look for treatments and solutions and answers to something, like, or a problem that you aren't think that you have, or that you do have, or something, um, but to take care of yourself, and not just physically, but mentally, and to like stay true to who you are, or what brings you joy, is so important, so that you don't just like burn out.
Yes, and it can be the smallest of things. Like joy can be um, reconnecting with joy of like what lights you up. And I like to start with the senses. And so I won't go, but just really quickly, just what do you like to smell? What do you like to look at? What's your favorite color? Like this plaid is like I've got plaid on my bed because it makes me so happy in my office to see that.
Mm.
That brings me joy.
Mm-hmm.
And so gathering like the littlest of things as a parent to have in front of you throughout the day to check in. So when you're having challenging moments with your child where it's like, oh, wait, I love that color, or I love this picture, or I love this image, or I love the way that our dish soap smells.
Mm-hmm.
Like the smallest of ways to bring joy can be so easy.
And it brings you present into
Yes.
yourself at the same time, I guess. um well, I love everywhere we've gone with this. I'm just realizing I had a whole bunch of questions that I just never asked you. um
Episode 2.
yeah. So, but I want to hear about so you, at what point did you decide to create the coaching that we've been talking about this whole time?
Yes.
Parenting the child you didn't expect when you were expecting. I like that.
Yes. Yes.
Can you explain that offering to our listeners a bit?
Yeah, so that is like my passion baby. Like that is my heart. It is a course that I created probably 10 or 11 years ago, and it is everything that I wish I had known when I was first starting my journey. It was um all of the things that I would have loved to have been aware of.
Yeah.
And I don't want parents to have to reinvent the wheel. I want them to be able to, as soon as they're ready,
Mm-hmm.
they have to be ready,
Mm-hmm.
which, sometimes means kind of mucking around in things first and then getting to a point where they're ready to do something different. Then that's where, the stuff that I share um, comes into play. And it's being aware of, it's creating awareness, it's doing a lot of what we talked about, but kind of the how to's of where it's coming from, what to do when you notice it, and then how it can help you in parenting to have more ease and joy. Like that's always my intention, is to help others get to that place. and it's not leapfrogging over the thoughts or the stories. It's okay, yeah, you might have these thoughts of like, I wish it were easier, or stories of it's never going to be easy, or my child's always going to be this, or all of those tough things. I don't shy away from the tough
Mm-hmm.
and from the challenging. It's okay, let's dive into that, and in a way that's digestible, and so that we can come out on the other side together,
Mm-hmm.
and you know where they know that they're not alone, that there's rarely anything that anybody can share who comes through my classes that I haven't experienced in my own way.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's a powerful thing to go from feeling like there's being at that rock bottom to getting to gratitude and joy.
Yeah, it is. I'm just learning, working on that myself.
Yeah.
Um, I say learning, but maybe it's relearning, um, figuring out that for myself. And it seems like maybe maybe it sounded like it should just be easier, but it's been a little bit of work. I say work, you say play, but I said work. I don't. But play for me to figure out how to have gratitude. Not that I'm
Mhm.
not, yeah, or to acknowledge different things in my world, and it's made a difference for me, shifting shifting where I am as well.
Yeah,
Um,
and
I
having a child with, who has gone through the struggles that your child went through and died. I mean, that's a whole other, that's a whole other layer.
yep,
And
lots of
yeah,
layers.
lots of layers. And so I honor that, and um, honor what you are doing
Thank
for
you,
the world and sharing your message. So
thank you. Um, okay, so besides the offering, what services or coaching sessions? Because you also do individual
yes.
coaching. Can you share what those are in case anyone is
Yeah.
thinking,
So
"Gosh, I
the
need this."
Yes. So the class, like the what I just was sharing, that's usually done as an 8-part course
Okay.
online, and I like to do it just over the phone so that nobody has to worry about what they're looking like or what they're wearing, and they can just listen while they're doing stuff with their kids. That's I love that aspect of technology. And then I do one-on-one sessions with people over the phone or Zoom if that's what they prefer. And it's whatever they're struggling with. I like to follow a process that identifies what is causing them tension in their parenting life, and helping them to get back to, or to find clarity in what their intention is, and then playing around with the attention that we can give to that area.
Mm-hmm.
And that brings in it, for me it's total play, because I can bring in my educational experience and my parenting experience and my coaching experience, and really kind of envision what's going on between parent and child, or parents and child, and offer up, some ideas for things that they can try to see if they make a difference, or to offer up other ways of framing the challenges that they're facing. And it's all so that they can have no or less, well, I don't believe there can be no tension in life, but less tension is what my hope is for people
More
to
joy, less tension.
more joy, less tension.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, if you can give a message to any parent of an exceptional kid out there listening to this podcast, who is struggling or feeling overwhelmed, what would you say? Or what advice do you have for
Yeah.
them, or words of encouragement?
I would again let them know that they are not alone, that this journey can feel very isolating and feel like nobody else in your maybe your immediate world understands or gets it, but you're not
Mhm.
alone. And there are so many other people out there who are feeling the same way, and that it is actually a very brave thing to ask for help
Mm.
and to seek out help, and um, in order to feel connection
Mhm.
to. And I think that's something that a lot of parents need, is just connection, to know community.
Yeah, but not with the binders.
Not with the binder people. No, I'm nope. No, don't.
Goodbye.
Yeah, exactly. Like, okay, that was one of the perfect things about my experiences that I get to share with you. If you see somebody walk in with a binder, you just grab your coffee and leave. No.
Oh, well, okay. So if I'm listening to this as a parent and really interested in working with you, what are my options and where do I go next?
So you can go to my website, which is margaretwebblifecoach.com. And I have all sorts of information there. I have lots of free resources, so that you can hear my voice again in a different way, or see what I look like. And, I feel like those kinds of things help people to feel connected. If you're on Instagram, you could follow me at Margaret Webb Parent Coach. And I'm on Facebook. I think it's the same thing as Margaret Webb Parent Coach.
Perfect. We'll link it
Yeah.
all.
Yes.
Um, well, thank you so much for taking the time again to be with me this morning. Is there anything else that you would like to say to share with the Brain Possible community to be complete?
Um, Gosh, no, I would, my thing is always just, I would love to give all of you a big hug, because I think if you're here, you are, you've been on your own parenting journey, and to to acknowledge that, I think is very important,
Mm-hmm.
to know that you are seen, you are heard, you are valued, and your experience is um, not to be ignored.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I hope you enjoyed our conversation today and that you learned something new. Do you have a question for Margaret? Would you like to hear from more parent practitioners? Let us know how we can be useful in your journey. Email us at info@thebrainpossible.com. Be sure to subscribe, follow, and share our podcast if that feels true for you. You may also consider visiting our website for more information on stories, therapies, and products that we think that you will love. As always, thank you for spending your precious time with us at The Brain Possible.